Well, hello. I'm on time. I don't know whether anybody else is out there. My apologies for bailing out on you the other day when I lost propane. So this time I'm completely prepared. I have propane coming out of my ears. So in case you don't remember what I want to demo, so I'm showing these two beads. They're, I don't know, an inch or so, and they're lentil-shaped beads. You see them from the side. And what is really interesting is that this bead here is actually kind of the same as that. I'll show you why and how. So I have to make a few apologies beforehand. You know, I have some days where my hands are shaking really badly, and I don't know whether it's like from my medication, like a side effect, or anxiety about the days that we live in. So if my hands get that's that's what it is. So I'm gonna do excuse me, I want to make a black bead, and instead of the white stringer I have prepared an ivory stringer. Show you this, and I'm going to show you the whole stringer, so I don't know whether you get an idea. Like, it's really long, and I actually measured it. And so if you do this, you want to have a stringer that is at least 22-23 inches long, because when you coil around the bead you need a lot of stringer. The other thing that I've prepared is a black stringer. It's just regular black, and I have it on a punty down there. So this stringer is about 2 to 3 millimeter thick, and this is what we are going to rake with. So this is very important. And then you need, as far as tools are concerned, let's see, I have just a really bad really bad tweezers here, so they get into my flames. So sometimes what you can do is like bend. It's not making it any better. I have some other tweezers that I might grab. So tweezers in good shape. Take better care of your tweezers. So we need that. And the other thing that I use is it's a poker. And if you have my poker set, then this is the one that is the skinniest. See here, it's very skinny, and so it goes deep into the glass. That's one I use at times. And what else? I think that's all we need. And oh, and here is the lentil press that I use. It's the medium lentil press from my set. So, and I'm going to use the biggest one, because the bigger you make the bead, the more room you have for your design. Another press that I really like is turn up my volume. 1 second. I don't know, is it up to me? 1 second. Okay, so I turn my volume up all the way. Does that matter? Oh, I might have actually, since I taped my phone to this didymium shield, it might be that I've somehow accidentally covered my my microphone. So is it really bad? Everybody has the same problem. So I'm going to talk louder. So this one here is the oar press. This is the 1-inch oar press, which I really prefer to a lentil shape because it has a much flatter surface. But this one is a bit more different or difficult, because you have to have the exact right amount of glass, and sometimes that's different. And here, so for those of you who have absolutely no press, this you can use a masher. So maybe I'll do that. You know, you can just flatten the bead. And okay, everybody has problem with the, where is this is a stupid question, where is the microphone on an iPhone? Okay, I think so. I think I uncovered the microphone. So is this better? So we're gonna take a mandrel, and I am using for this, even though, just show you the press again, you know, even though the press has really big holes, so you could put a 3/32 mandrel through that, I prefer to use the 1/16 mandrel. So now I'm going to do something that's really hard to show. The reason I cannot put anything here on my phone is because it's kind of on my paper, it's just hanging in nowhere. So if I put my thing, I rip it all out. So I'm doing this close to the camera. I'm taking a Sharpie. I'm obviously problems with the volume. So I took the tape off, so my phone might fall into my lap while we're doing this. So I put the mandrel into the mold, and I'm marking it there right where it's kind of along the edge of the curve. So I have the mandrel here. I have the mandrel marked. Now the problem with the Sharpie is that if you get a lot of heat on it, that will actually okay, everybody can barely hear a thing. So 1 second, I'm going to, what can I do? Very hard. I'm going to switch to my settings and see whether I can, I hope I'm not going to lose you. So I cannot switch to my settings. Darn! That's not good if I can't get the phone. So I go back to the volume buttons here. But so I'm working on full volume. Anuka can hear me just fine. Okay, so I'm making this for her, and she can hear me just fine. So now let's get some flame going. And again, I don't know whether you have seen the picture of my setup here. So it's a little bit difficult for me to do things the normal way, because normally I would put my mandrel straight, or my rod straight on the mandrel like this, but here, because of everything being in the way, I have to go a little bit sideways. So I'm starting out, and I'm only heating the mandrel between the markings. So by the time you get to the right, you'll be fine. So heat the tip of the mandrel and touch it to the left. And it's always very important that the first row goes all the way back to its beginning, and then you can go sideways. I kind of have a very bad habit. I noticed that lately, that I go right too fast, and then I have a little bit of a kind of a missing triangle on the left, and I actually have it here too. I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to go, oh, 1 second, I just noticed that I'm not wearing my titanium glasses. So I go all the way to the other end, kind of try to be, oh, there, see? So this should be the right length for the mold, but I'm going to take, this is something I actually do. So I take the mold and I put the bead in there, and you see that it's kind of short on the right, and you can also see the marking on the right. So I have to add some more, and that's kind of difficult to do, because if you just add glass, to the glass you have on top, that glass will just go backwards. You know, it will melt onto the left side of the bead. So you have to make sure that the glass goes really down onto the mandrel. Now, I wanted to show you what I mean by that little triangle that, see, can you see here? Sure there. There's a tiny, I just went too far right, too early, so in order to get a nice ending there, I heat that up and I push the glass backwards. So what I've done here, this first row is actually not all that good, because what I typically try is to get my rolls, my coils, so hot that they will flow into each other right away, so that when I go with the second layer I don't have these holes. You know, this can possibly trap air. So now I'm going to give it a little bit more heat, that my glass flows naturally. See how much hotter it is, and now I don't really have the coils. So I'm making a kind of an oval shape, and I still don't wear any glasses. 1 second, I have to. So I just go to the far right, and then I'm gonna stop for a second and find my glasses. Here they are. You know, in my online classes, as you know, I've done everything as a recording, and I know why, because you know, when you do this live, this can be very embarrassing, because you know, there's no guarantee that what you're doing is going to be what you need to be doing. Even after making beads for 20 years, I still have those moments, you know, where I said, like, what happened to my skills? And this is probably enough glass. Now, maybe a little bit here. I don't know whether you guys remember, you know, once in a while I like to emphasize this, I actually invented these presses on the table. Before, everything was on a handle, kind of like tweezers, like mashers. And so people asked, when I started selling them, people asked, well, how do you know how much glass you need? And I've never really come up with a sufficient answer. I know that people took like Fimo or some other polymer clay, and they made a bead that fit into the mold, and then they put it on the mandrel. For me, it's more like, you know, if you do it 2 or 3 times, you'll kind of get the idea. So you might wonder what this is. This is my monster shaper, and it has nothing to do with the shape or the size of this bead, but you know, you can use the ends to just smooth this out a little bit, because I remember I was in Switzerland a few years ago, and one of the ladies there did a demo about making a big oval bead, and it took her so long because she only used heat and gravity. And heat and gravity are great, they're your friend, but they make everything take a lot longer. So this is not a perfectly shaped bead, and it looks a little short, but it doesn't matter. So now okay, Lark says it's quiet. I don't know what to do, guys, about the sound. 1 second, I have to shape this a little bit better here. So bring everything to a bright glow and roll it in the shaper. Now, if you don't have a monster shaper or any kind of other shaper, you might think that, you know, sometimes you can use the top of the mold to pre-shape your beads, but the mold itself is a lot flatter than the bead that you have to push into the mold, so that one won't do you any good. So now I'm going to show you one I'm gonna hopefully instill in you that this bead and coiling around is actually one of the hardest things you can do with stringer, I think, because the problem is, you start down here and you move upwards. So this part down here on the left hangs out in the coat. So it's very possible that these things down here can jump off. And then when you, excuse me, when you start here, then you move that way, and then this way is always very cold. And so you have to make sure that your stringer sticks to that. So this is not this is not the stringer. Excuse me. This is not the string I'm using, but I wanted to show you something that if you were in my studio and you would stand behind me, you could see how I'm holding the stringer. I have this saying that the stringer should always be, now you just really kind of have to visualize this, the stringer should be as close to its final position as possible. So if you take your stringer and you kind of go slightly from top, the stringer goes around, and then this stringer comes here, and then you have like an angle. And you don't want angles because stringers don't like angles. So what I'm doing is I'm holding, let's see, I'm going to turn it in a different, so I'm holding my stringer like this, coming from down below. And I have my hand on the table, and I'm basically, as I'm moving, feeding the stringer upwards. So having said all of that, do you have any questions? I can just look at the screen for a while. What was that? I can't read that. Do you heat your monster shaper before footing? No, I don't. So one thing that is important, so now I'm holding my bead and I'm holding the stringer in the same hand. So you want to just heat the tip of that stringer, and ivory is just almost 2. And you want to make, okay, Connie says, turn all the background noise. I can't turn on the background noises because that's my concentrator, and behind me is my kiln, so I cannot turn those off. Sorry about that. So see here how I kind of pointed the stringer, because you want to have the same look of the stringer down here as there. And when we come here, we melt it off, so we get a natural tail end look. And so we have to do the same thing on the beginning. So I'm getting the heat, the bead really, really hot down here, and the stringer. So you kind of want to anchor the stringer. Make sure that stringer is okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm just slowly turning the bead, and I'm trying to be just in the flame with the stringer and a little bit of the bead. So see there, you can see the ivory kind of slightly glowing, and the truth is, see there, I have a little bit of a curve. The truth is that I developed this technique in order to help students make something pretty out of a totally messed up stringer application. And of course I can use this myself. So far so good. I'm coming from the stringer from below. I'm underneath the flame, ever so slightly in the flame. So now I'm gonna go down and get a little bit of heat down to the beginning, so that does not jump off. The problem is, every time you kind of jump from your, how do you say, like you're on a roll here, right? So I'm totally on a roll, and when I go down there to give some heat, you lose your momentum. So I always go a little bit down to what I already have. Now, this is something I do. I turn, as I'm coming to the right, I'm turning the bead towards me. because what is really important is that not only the stringer is warm, but also, oops, the bead where the stringer goes. So if I'm turning, and I'm not sure you can see that, so I'm moving my hand backwards. This is interesting. See here, not enough heat. So I'm melting this off, and down there still something broke off. No big deal. This is actually the reason why I'm showing this. So this one here. But I'm prepared for that. So before I continue, there's a gap up there, so give it good heat. So I'm filling in the pieces that fell off. And of course, let's say if you were making a bead that was just lines going around a bead, this would be really bad. So here I have another like tiny point, so I'm going with that tiny point on top of the existing stringer, and I go all the way to where it broke off and pull it out. See, now everything up there. So this looks like a disaster. Yeah, that was a disaster. But this is all part of the scheme. So like, see, I have this big blob here. So you get in there and you pull it over to the thinnest part of the string. Now we have to be, we are warned that this is all getting cold. Now I'm taking, I want to have the stringer clean, and got the pressure. I kind of feel like Tiger Woods trying to show people how to do a putt from 2 inches away, and it's not working. So again, I'm holding my bead so that the right side where there's no there's no stringer yet, that goes into or towards the bead. Always remember that the bead has to be warm for the stringer to stick. So that's kind of your first, your most important, how do you say, kind of your mantra is keep the bead warm. So we have a few blobs here, and so I just heat that up and pull it, and there, this is a really bad blob, so bring it to heat, go in there with the warm stringer and pull it out. Alright, so this is, if this was a bead just with the lines around, it would be a bloody disaster. But one second, there's a question. Oops. When you, for some reason this question doesn't, I can't see this. When you do you start on the, so I have to wait for these questions to come further down on the screen because I really can't see what it is. So what I'm doing now is I'm just heating the lines, and you have an option. You can heat the lines completely in, or you can just melt them in like 98% or so. Sometimes that makes the raking part easier. So I leave it a little bit. So can you see? It's a little bit raised. Now this is something, oops, I have, what happened to my stringer? Hey, you should see you should see my desk here. It's a disaster. Okay, so we have a stringer, and you need some tweezers. This is one of the things where, when I learned, and I think I learned from a book, Sandy Jenkins' book, and there were instructions for raking, and the raking was done with a tungsten rake. And what I never liked about that raking technique was then when you go through, then you're basically shoving the glass to the bottom, so you have kind of that very, very obvious movement of glass. And I never like that. So I'm taking my stringer, grab, pull out a little bit, and then I turn it down, so bend it over, and so here I have my rake. So this part here, see how I have the blobs here? So this is the ugliest part, so I'm just going to rake that through. And when you rake, you have several options. You can just heat the entire surface of the bead and rake in one swoop, or you can do what I do is I rake almost one line at a time. It gives it a different look, and maybe I can do both looks for you. So I'm taking that area here, and I'm starting on the left, and I try to get the heat all the way to the mandrel, and you see how little red there is. So the point here is that you only heat the surface of the bead. So when you see it like this, I have not moved any glass really. I have only moved the surface. So now I'm going to do something you can't see. I'm blowing onto the stringer. So I made this much, and I want to go kind of to that black one in the middle. So I heat the rake can be a little bit warm. So see that blob that is really glowing there? I'm going into that, and that way it just looks as if you had a continuous rake. And I'm always blowing on the stringer, on the rake. See now, I lost a little bit of my glass in that raking. So, and I don't know whether you have seen, I've showed it before, like how you hold two things in the same hand, because that's what I'm doing when I'm resharpening my rake here, because see how blunt it is? So I'm holding my bead like this, and I'm holding the stringer down below, and see now I can have my bead in the flame, grab, twist, and break off. And you have to do this several times, probably more times than you want to, and they're always smart students. I love students when they ask smart questions. They say, can't you just prepare like 10 of these rakes? So I'm heating the right, I go in there, and I'm moving towards, see now I had it a little bit warmer. Now everything kind of moved in one, in one motion. And I'm always trying to keep everything in the center clean. So I'm going with those tiny, tiny Amazon stringers. But this needs to be moved a little bit closer to the other one. Sorry for the blowing that you can't see, but I think you can imagine. So in order to make the pattern, this is kind of tricky. You have to go from the shoulder of the bead in a curve and come right in that center. So that's a little bit tricky because of the curve. It's always easier to heat this and just go in a straight line. So I'm going to just heat like these two lines there, go in with my stringer, and I'm moving in a curve, and there it gets stuck. Didn't even have to blow. And I always want to go back in that end point. So heating the next, and only heat the surface of the bead. This is one of the reasons I like to make these on black, because let's say you would make the bead on ivory, the bead would get hot, the ivory glass would get soft a lot earlier, and you probably distort the bead quite a bit. So I'm bringing that to a glow, and I'm aiming at the center down there, and I'm still, see here where I am, I'm still not in the middle. And if you wanted to be anal, you could remove this little black tip there so it doesn't ball up in the middle. So I have to do it one more time. Go, and now we made it to the middle. And this is a new thing that always have these kind of tiny tweezers. Wherever I'm blowing, that is where my microphone is. Now you see here, the end of my curve is there. I still didn't make it to the center, so I'm going to do it again. Go into the glowing, and now I have it. And whatever excess glass you have, you want to pull it off and move it off. So the less junk glass. So same thing, I have to sharpen my rake, go in there, bend over. This is actually a better rake because it's skinnier. When you have a skinny, like see here, when you have a skinny rake, you make a cleaner rake. The problem is that the skinny rake will melt off or break off easier. So now I can go here on this side, or I can finish that side. So I'm just going to go there, kind of eyeball where you started there, and you want to start more or less on the same area there. So make sure that the part next to the mandrel is glowing. And I got to bring this down into the curve. And I'm still, oops, now I got my rake in the flame, so I have to sharpen again. I think I do it about 7-8 times. And I always bend it over because it's much easier to, like a rake is always bent, so this is your kind of your rake. How's the sound going? Is it a little bit better? So now when you're here, you can see here that there's a little blob up here and there's a little blob up here. That makes it more difficult to heat the area in between because these two blobs kind of catch the heat. So I'm gonna give it a little bit more heat. Go into that, and there we are at the very in the middle. Just want to get rid. Okay, I don't know. I don't know whether you guys are still here. It said that my phone overheated, which is sad because I bought this special heat resisting thing from my iPhone. So I assume you're still here. Can somebody give me a sign of life, because I'm not sure that they're that they kicked me out. So I'm just pretending. Heat. Oops. See, every time if you heat your stringer differently, if you heat it further out or so, it gets a little. Okay, you guys are still there. Perfect. So I moved, unfortunately I had to move my camera a little bit further away. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. And always remember, only heat the top layer of your bead. If you heat it too long, there's so much glass that moves on, then it's not pretty anymore, and then you have all that glass on one side. So you see that I'm taking my time and move to the middle. Okay, that was not quite. Can you see that it's not quite in the middle? So I go in there again and then move the glass, pull the glass, and oh good. All right. God, I'm totally technology challenged. And again, I have to sharpen the you know, the more effort you put into this, into making your rake, the cleaner your bead will look, because especially if you pull some of the ivory with you and then you have it on the rake and use it, then you leave the ivory behind. So heating down here, go above the first line and pull until it doesn't go anywhere, and just again heat, go in the end point. Now my Yay. As I said, the glass gods are not with me. So I could do the same thing. Maybe I'll do that. But first of all, I wanted to show you, because you have all these lines coming in here, and you can even see like that it's a little brown. So I'm heating this center of the pattern. I'm taking my skinny poker and I poke it in, so that way it just looks a lot cleaner. So since this is all, you know, since this was all interrupted, I'm just going to do the same thing again. So if you want to, you can just go grab a coffee or something. I'm going to do the same pattern on the opposite side, and maybe what I'm trying to do is just getting everything a little bit hotter, so that I'll show you what it looks like when you can rake. So see, if you get a little bit hotter, you can rake it in one swoop. For some reason I prefer the, you know, kind of the step by step. And my rake is not very good. Let's see here. And if you do that at home, you will notice there's a different look to it when, you know, when you use more heat. You know, if you rake each line by itself, it looks differently than when you rake, you know, in one swoop. So the question whether you can make your rakes in advance, I see why not. I don't see why not. No, I don't see why not. But the rake has to be warm, and so then you have all these cold rakes that need to be preheated. So I don't think that you save a lot of time. So I always just heat like 2 or 3 lines in front of where I'm gonna go. And are you guys bored yet? My next demo will be something, I don't know yet what, something high action. Okay, so let's see how, this is probably going to take me 2 times to get to the center. Go in that glowing area. And here you can see, okay, this is not going all the way. You can see that the glass here that was, you know, that I didn't grab, actually kind of made this area a little bit mucky looking. So I'm pulling, and I'm still not in the middle. And so I have, well, oh, yeah, my apologies. Did you notice what I've been doing? I went in the wrong direction. Instead of raking to the center, let's see what kind of see, I was supposed to rake this way, not this way. Yeah. But you know, this is sometimes how patterns develop, kind of by accident. Because there was in one class, I don't know, a long time ago, one of the students, you know, we were doing this, and it did something completely different, and it was so cool. I never quite figured out what he did. Okay, so I'm going down there, and I'm not going to do anything on the other side. I'm just curious what this looks like here. Alright, so if you see like some dark, you know, something where the ivory might have reacted with the black, you know, sometimes you can get away with going in there and pulling again. But I said that I'm not going to do the other side, but I lied because now I'm really curious to see what it looks like with this pattern. This might be, you know, the pattern from heaven. And if I give up now, then I will never know. So, yeah, so the idea was to go this way and that way to create the same pattern. And now I'm going this way into that, and we'll see what that is gonna go. So, always go from the most outside. See, I didn't have a lot of heat there. And the nice thing is that you can always see where you have to dip your rake into, because it's always that glowing blob there. Okay. I've made some strands with beads, you know, just like this. In my opinion, it is a little bit psychedelic overkill. So now I would probably make some kind of calming beads in between, you know, something with dot patterns, maybe just regular stringer control. So I wouldn't make a whole strand out of the, oops. See, and always make sure that you end up in the middle. And that was bad. A second. No, it melted backwards. What did I just want to say? I had something. I had something very important to say. I forgot what it was. Ask me in an hour. So, you know, for a demo, typically in classes, I always, there's this thing that every teacher says, which is it's just a demo. It's just the demo is basically an excuse for poor workmanship. But this is just a demo. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get these two end pieces all the way to the center. Okay, good enough. You guys have any questions? I mean, I have my eyes peeled on the beads, so I can't really see if you have a question, but I'm going to look up. So cool. So cool. So this is a question for those of you who have taken classes, you know, not just from me. I think most other people do their classes live, and I'm maybe the only one who records the classes. So for those of you who have kind of experienced both, I would be interested to learn what you like better. So I just have to use this. Problem with the ivory and the black is, you know, there is quite a bit of, oops, there's a big piece that came off. So move that away. Okay, we're almost done. But I said that what, like half an hour ago. See, my design is coming a little bit from the side, not from the center. And you see there's a lot of black down here. So I'm using this cheater rake and try to pull some of that black away. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing, poke, you know, hide everything that's bad. But it's like as I'm heating it, it's actually moving away from the center. So I'm grabbing those little perfect tweezers and I'm pulling it out. And then I'm heating it. And pushing it in. Okay, let's see. Oh, the little tweezers. There is actually on. So what? One second. What I'm doing now, if you, I don't know whether I can hold this without burning myself. There's a lot more glass on this side, so where I pulled it. So before I push it, I kind of gently heat it and try to bring it down a little bit. Like this. So the tweezers are from Amazon, and I actually bought a set just to kind of see whether I could recommend that. And apart from 2 or 3 of those, they all disappeared. There are lots of tweezers in that set. It's about 13, it got a little bit more expensive. It's about $13, $14, and I think it's called Precision Tweezer Set. It comes in a little red pouch to carry. So now I'm just heating up. And this is, unfortunately, I cannot show you how I'm meshing this, because I've tried that once, and you see here, see my thumb. that's what happened when I try to press a bead near the flame. So I'm going to take it out, and I'm putting the main design on top. I'm pressing really hard, and now I have to flame polish it. So this is the one side. Okay. So this is the classic side, and one of you mentioned somehow that this looks like a butterfly, and if you hold it like this, it certainly does look like a butterfly. And the one thing that I cannot figure out, after for years I thought I'm going to make a butterfly. So the question is, how do you make this part one color and this part in the middle, which would not be part of the butterfly? See, also I have pressed a little bit sideways. That part is smaller than the other. So I'm cheating a little bit. I'm just heating that bottom. And what I do is I just heat the edge and kind of push it in the monster shaper. And that makes it look more like that end. So let's see what the other side. So flame polishing. This is what you do. You have your bead, and you basically hold the bead in a right angle above the flame. You never do this. You never ever rotate the bead. So you just kind of go alongside the bead, the edges, but you're in a right angle to the, to the surface of the bead. And there it is. So this is the other side, and this is the front side, and pretty cool. I like the back side actually better, but that's one of the cool things. One second, I'm going to put this in the kiln. That's one of the cool things about beads with patterns is that, you know, like this one here, that you don't have to make a different pattern, but you have to press it differently. Like this, you know, this is the pattern that is on top here. So I made pattern on each side, and then I pressed it so that you know, the space in between comes forward. Looks like a completely different bead. So that was it, I think. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, you could do I can't do that right now because I don't have anything prepared, but in the next live demo, I'm going to show you how to make a silver line dot, because I think I have that in one of my calendars, and I'm really very fond of the technique. But it is so different, so much different when you actually see it happen, because I've seen people do it after the written tutorial, and seeing it in action makes it so much easier. So what press did I use for this one? I used the medium lentil. I prefer doing it on the orb, but as I said, it's a little bit more difficult because when you have, I'll show this again, when you press a bead in a lentil shape, you know, sometimes it's too big, so it kind of presses around the edges, and all you have to do is take, let's say this was a bead, you just have to put some heat on this edge and it just blends right in. Whereas with the straight-sided lentil or an orb, you know, you have an edge on the side, and if you have too much glass, then that glass goes in the middle of the edge, and there's no way you can ever melt that in. So that was it for today, and I make sure, I don't know how this is going to show up in the recording when my phone lost the heat, or lost out to the heat. So what's the diameter of the stringer? Very good question. So the one that I used was about one point, it's hard to say, 1.2. You can use any size of stringer. So this one here is thinner. I'm just grabbing some random stringer, so this is a little thinner. And this one here is thick. Oh, this is one thing I wanted to tell you, which is very important. I pulled out a sample to show you. Let me see. One of the important things with this kind of stringer work, where you know you need to have the same stringer, is like oftentimes when this is good. So when you pull a stringer and then you come out of the rod, and I always tell my students they have to pull straight. This is embarrassing, but when people pull stringer, what do? They cut the stringer where it comes out of the rod. So let's say you would start with the stringer, 2 millimeter, right? And so you coil and coil and coil, and look, the stringer gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. So that just happens to me too. I mean, I pulled the stringer, but you have to be really aware of what your stringer looks like. So if your stringer is like throughout uneven, then you just have to make another one. And what's really important is pulling the long stringer, and pulling a long stringer the even straight is not easy. So I actually wanted to make a little sample thing. I kind of got sidetracked, but I just wanted to show you how much glass, let me see whether I have anything here. So how much glass you need in order to pull a stringer that is long enough to do this. So I'm gonna give you about this big. So I always go either with the cherry or with the raisin and a pea. It's not as big as a cherry, definitely bigger than a pea. So something on that. So now I have a question, because I'm not really sure with how this live thing works. It says here, bring them on camera. I'm just going to randomly click on this, and Anna Fitzgerald, this is underneath your name, so I'm going to click on that. Bring Anna on camera. What happens? Can't bring Anna on camera. So, so much for that. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, then what is today? Friday. So Tuesday or so, I'm going to do the silver line dot, probably around the same time. Or if you guys have a time that works best for you, you can start a thread on Corina Beads and You and just give me the best time for you, and then I kind of figure out what's a good time to do this. Well, thank you very much, and I'm gonna click finish, and you guys have a great weekend, and I really appreciate you coming and watching. I forgot something. I'm not sure you guys are still around, but I told you that I had I did some experiments with colors that I've never used before, so I just kind of wanted to show you what doesn't work. So this one here, I don't know, some people might like it. It's kind of organic. This is Aura on ivory. Let's see how I can. So this one is ugly, I think. So I didn't do anything in the back. Yeah, so that didn't work. This one here is very interesting. Let's see if I hold it really close. You see these little dots in there? I have no idea what I did there. I thought it was just white on black, but it must have been another base color, and I wish I could remember what it was, because it looks really cool. So this is mystery. This was ivory on black. We've seen that. And this one here, which I'm quite fond of. If you in the second edition of Passing the Flame, I was experimenting a little bit with silver blue and silver green. Those are Kugler colors. This was like way before, double helix glass, but it has this, silver shimmer. But I always liked it without the shimmer, because it kind of spread out a little bit on top of copper green. So this one has potential, I think, and you can tell up here, see how the copper green turns kind of mucky, and it likes to do that. I think, no, in the back it wasn't. So if you don't like the mucky look, then you just etch the bead, and it has this batik look, which I've always been fond of. So that was that. This one is a complete bust. Let me see whether I can even hold it at an angle that you can see that I did something. This was Triton stringer on black, and it's kind of dusty, so maybe you can see. Yeah, there's just not enough contrast. I wasted a whole like 2 inches of Triton. Darn. This is Goldstone on transparent blue. The nice thing about Goldstone is, like, if you have problem with your stringer kind of jumping off, Goldstone sticks very well to any base. So do I like this bead? No. Because I don't like blue. but it's an option. So the goldstone did really well. Now this is a different story. This is goldstone on ivory, as you can see. And one of the problems with goldstone is that, you know, a goldstone stringer, let me show one here. So that is your goldstone stringer. As long as you have the stringer part, you know, the side, goldstone is extremely beautiful. I mean, you can see here how nice it is. But you remember when I had, you know, I raked it and I basically had like the tip of my stringer coming together. So when the tip of your when that comes out to the surface, it turns kind of a yucky brown. And you can see this here, how you have these dark spots. And that's just where the unencased part of the goldstone stringer is coming to the surface. So I probably wouldn't do this raking pattern. This one was a little bit easier to rake. So yeah, so this one is also hit and miss. And what else do I have? Oh, I have one more. This is black, regular black on light red. And the problem with that is, as you can imagine, that when you have the black string on top of a red bead, you can't see worth shit. I mean, everything is black. So you see the pattern is just all over the place because I literally couldn't see it. So nothing, I always like the black and white and the ivory and white, the classic color combinations. But if you guys play with this and come up with a killer color combination, just let me know. Okay? So that was it. Sorry, just forgot to show you those. Bye bye.